Welcome to the Dapper community call, January 26th. This community call, we have a few interesting things to show you. Yaron Schneider is going to talk about state sharing strategies between services with Dapper. Arthur is going to share the time to live for messages in PubSub. And also, I believe the addition of the UUID field in the metadata. And finally, I'll be sharing some things about some exciting stuff about Dapper version 1.0, the announcement and the release. So stay tuned for that. As always, feel free to leave questions in the chat. We'll try to get to it in the session that you're asking a question about. If not, we'll have an open discussion segment at the end. Hopefully we can address everything. We're also happy to unmute people if they ask that or raise their hand or mention that in the chat. So with that, Yaron, I'll let you get started.
Thanks, Ori. Let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So hello, everyone, and I'll be talking about sharing state between different services or applications with Dapper. So for those of you who don't really know Dapper, Dapper has a bunch of building blocks where one of them is the state management building block, where you can save state and get state in a key value API model. And what you usually get with Dapper by default is that Dapper encapsulates the state per service. So Dapper has a concept of an application ID, where you run the sidecar and you give an ID, and that's tied to your application. And a state that's saved by one application cannot be retrieved by another application. And that's the way it was for a pretty long time, up until last month, I think, where we released RC2. And this is the time to thank Alibaba for pushing in this feature. I think it's really great, and it's something that was discussed a long time ago. And what this feature basically does is it lets you set different settings on a state store or even multiple state stores to configure an ability to share state between applications. So, you know, you can think about the default state where Dapper encapsulates the state for an app ID as really maybe like a best practice, where if you want to share state between two services, they need to call one another to get their state. And this is like a more service-oriented, contract-based type of approach. But in a lot of cases, what we've heard is that some apps have a logical business logic domain that they both belong to, and they want to share the same state. And some apps even want to do it across multiple state stores. So this feature really comes in, and I'm just going to show how this looks like right now. So I'm going to be running two Dapper sidecars in this terminal, and I'm just going to do Dapper run here with an app ID of app1. So I'm just using the Dapper CLI to just run the sidecar, and I'm not running the application. So I'm gonna do this, and Dapper is gonna run. And here, I will just run Dapper with the app ID of 2, and I'm giving them different ports. So now we have two sidecars running side by side, and I will be using Postman to save and get state. So now I'm talking to the Dapper sidecar that has the ID of app1, and I am calling.
Oh, sorry. I think you're muted, Yaron.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for muting me. And this is the state store that I have configured for both sidecars. So this is just a Redis state store that's running on my machine using a Docker container. And you can see that by default, we have something that's called a key prefix, and the key prefix is app ID. If you don't see this in the component, then this is the default strategy, which means that state is encapsulated per app ID. So let's try and do that. So I'm going to be saving a key value item here to the state store using the sidecar that has the app1 ID, and I'm going to name the key hey. So I saved it, and we can see it took 5 milliseconds, and we got a 204 contact created. And if I go here and I will do a hey, get hey API call, then I can see that I have the value. But if I go to the different sidecar and I get the same value, I get nothing back because, and I reach out for the same key, I get nothing back because the state was saved with the app1 Dapper sidecar, and so it's not available for app2. So what I'm going to do now is just edit this state store here. So we will just edit it, and we're going to change this key prefix from app ID to name. And what this is going to do is now it sets up the ability for two sidecars using two different app IDs to retrieve the same key for a given state store. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to go back here and restart my Dapper sidecars. And now they're both running again. And I'll just go back here and yeah, I'll receive the value. And so I'm going to do a get command for sidecar one, which is the sidecar I used to save the value. So I used the sidecar with app1 to save the hey key, and I see that I get the value back. But now I'm going to reach out for sidecar two, and we can see that we're getting the value. So now we actually have two sidecars sharing state in the scope of a single state store. So this is nice, but what if we have multiple state stores, you know, where we might have like a warm cache in front of our servers and one of the state stores acting as a database or something else. So I also have a second state store here, and I will just edit the first one, and I will change. And I will change it to the last key prefix strategy, which is none. And none will allow us to share state between multiple state stores. So I will edit this, and I will edit also the state store 2. And I'm going to change it from the key prefix of app ID to none. So I just finished that, and I will restart the Dapper sidecars with the same app IDs. And now I will go back to Postman, and I will save a new key. Let's call it hey2, and I will just post it here. So the key was saved, and now I will try to get it back. So this is sidecar 1 getting the key from state store. Okay, so it's called hey2. So we get there, and now we're going to go to the second sidecar. So I'm just going to change the port here, which has the app ID of 2, and I'm going to reach out into state store 2, and we're getting the same value from the second state store that's configured. So this feature really gives us a lot of nice possibilities to decide how we want to share state. All of what I've shown you is explained in detail inside of our documentation, inside of developing applications, building blocks, state management, and then there's a how-to called how to share state between applications. So yeah, this is the end of the demo. And if you have any other ideas about how we can extend state sharing, feel free to suggest it via Discord or GitHub. I will say that we have a PR that's currently waiting. It's probably going to get looked at post 1.0, where we will be enabling state changes from state stores. So we will give applications the ability to get notified whenever a state record changes in one or multiple state stores. So this is something that we're looking at post 1.0. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we can go back to the agenda.
Thank you, Aaron. Looking at the chat, Carlos mentioning that this is something that actually has somebody, a client who's asking for that, so that's great. Any other questions for Yaron for this feature or anything? Feel free to drop it in. If not, let's move to Arthur's part. Go ahead, Arthur. And we see your screen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, great. So let me move to the next window. Okay, there you go. So we can see my terminal now. So this feature is for message TTL in PubSub. So it basically means that when you're publishing a message in Dapper, you can now set the TTL in seconds. It's an optional parameter, is a part of the metadata. And Dapper will have the expiration set in the cloud event that becomes the pub sub message. When this message is received by the subscriber the Dapper runtime layer will know that this message has expired and drop it before sending to the app. If the subscriber is outside Dapper, doesn't use Dapper, you can still detect the message expiration by comparing the current time with the expiration timestamp, but that would be a manual check. But if you do through Dapper, the subscription handles that automatically. So let me show this feature right now. So here's the demo that we have on the Java SDK. It could be any other language, just because I'm more familiar with the Java SDK. That's the one I'm using. So the message TL is 1 second. That's the change from the demo you have in the sample. Then it will publish 10 messages. Okay. So if I do publish right now, I'm going to clean install, just make sure I have the code compiled. And I'm going to publish 10 messages. And after that, I will wait maybe 2-3 seconds, and I'm going to start a subscriber. And you're going to see that the subscriber do not get the messages. They get expired and logged on the terminal. So the compilation is happening. Just give me a second. And then, almost done. There you go. And then I will do the pub sub. So it's just called publisher, just a usual pub sub app. Okay, send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there you go. 10 messages published. So 2 seconds should be enough. So now I'm going to start a subscriber. Okay. Subscriber starting, give it a second. There you go. So we can see now the message being dropped. So see the warning is a warning level message, dropping message event and the UUID, and says the timer has expired. And all messages have expired here. Okay. And the subscriber did not receive the messages. So if I run the subscriber again, and I run the publisher again with the subscriber running, you're gonna see that you're gonna get the messages. There you go. That's what it looks like when you receive the message. So that's the TTL feature. One thing that is important is that we do it in 2 levels. We do TTL at the message level, but also at the message level at Dapper, and we also do it in the component. So in Azure Service Bus, we have, you just give me a second. Okay, there was some background noise. So we can also do at the component level. So some components like Azure Service Bus have TTL per message already, and the expired message go to the dead letter queue. So what happens is Dapper will not drop it at the runtime. It will annotate the message correctly when you publish into Azure Service Bus, and Azure Service Bus will handle that for you. So it's nice because it works both ways, when you have the feature built in the component and when it doesn't. So that was message TTL. Now let's talk about some other feature as well. It was kind of not planned, but it's relevant to PubSub as well. Where we got an issue about some days ago where someone was trying to have a shared topic in MQTT running a Kubernetes, having multiple pods in the deployment for the app, but it would not work because the identifier of the consumer was shared across instances. So you basically need every single instance, every single pod to have a unique identifier, so you can share the load of consuming a given topic. So let me just do a change my branch, okay, and do a installation here. So we have this new feature now that is beyond PubSub. It can be used anywhere in Dapper. Where, let me zoom in for everybody to see. Give me a second. So where you can add a UUID in any metadata. So if you use this special tag here in the string, any part of the string, doesn't mean to be a whole string, can be a substring as well. Dapper will automatically generate a random UUID and stick to it when the application starts, where the sidecar starts. Sorry, when the sidecar starts, you're going to have that. So this allows multiple pods for the same deployment to basically have a unique UUID. So let me share how this would work. So we could have, for example, it's a very similar demo. It's slightly modified, but it's very similar. The major difference is that because we are using MQTT, we have a shared topic URL like this, and that's about it. Okay, so let me, and the publisher should do the same. That's in topic. There you go. So let me run this. Give me a second now. We're gonna run the subscriber first. Subscriber 0. Because they're running locally, they're gonna have different IDs on the app ID, but in Kubernetes they would not. So this one is running again as well. Yep. So I have 2 instances. Okay, and if I show the dashboard, this is the broker I'm using. It's called EMQX. So if you look at the subscription, see how each one of them has a different UUID. See? So the dash consumer is appended automatically by the component implementation. This is a consumer ID that we pass in the metadata. And now if I publish, the same way I was publishing 10 messages before, I'm going to publish 10 messages again. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. See how this instance got messages 0, 1, and 2. This other instance got messages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It happened that it was a sequence. It doesn't need to be. But some message got to one load, then one got to another one. So this is how we can do, for example, share a topic now in Dapper by using the UID feature. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur, and also thank you, Yaron. So these 2 features that we just discussed, they're going to be available at the next release candidate, right? RC3, I believe. Keep me honest here, Yaron and Arthur. And yes. I'm not sure if I see any more questions. I know that there was a few things that Yaron addressed in the chat, but if there's anything.
So Ori, just to make it clear, the state sharing feature is already inside of RC2. The TTL
okay.
will be in RC3. Yeah.
Terrific. So RC2 is already available, and you can find instructions in the docs how to upgrade to it and how to try it out. RC3 is coming out in a few days. We're approaching the code freeze for that one. And yeah, so hopefully everybody on the call knows that we are in the process of doing these release candidates, and we're up to the 3rd one, as I just mentioned. And actually, that's going to be the last planned release candidate that we have. And in this part, I actually want to share some of the timeline of the Dapper version 1.0. So we are actually expecting to do the official release of version 1.0 in February 17th, which is a very, very exciting milestone for us. The Dapper project has been around since October 2019, and we're really happy to get to this point. And one of the things we absolutely, of course, first of all, like just getting here was a big part of it was all the community work, all the contributions and everything. And what we want to do is really make a big moment, both as a celebration and also just as an announcement for it. So we'd love to get the help of the community to just tell the story of Dapper, of the version 1.0 announcement, and help us kind of scream this from the rooftops. So we'd love to see the community help us share the announcement blog that's going to be coming out of the official Dapper blog. Obviously, there's going to be a tweet, so you can feel free to retweet and put it on other social media as well. Really, wherever you feel there's an audience for it. I think the cool thing about having an open source project and having such an engaged and kind of excited community like we have for Dapper is that there's a lot of people from different places, and I think we have the ability to really kind of reach a lot of different people. And of course, there are people who've been kind of paying attention and following what Dapper has been doing. But I think Dapper is also new to a lot of people and can bring a lot of value to a lot of developers in other places. So this is an exciting announcement, and we want to take that opportunity and expand the user base of Dapper, expand the community. Now, just a few things on how you can help. You can see it on the screen, obviously, but first of all, I think even though we're kind of sharing this right now, I think it would be best to kind of have that big announcement amplified instead of like doing bits of it right now or later. So please kind of, when we're spreading the news, let's do it on the day as much as possible. But yeah, aside from that, I think a few things that we'd love to see is people from the community that are just sharing what they're doing with Dapper. There's been a lot of really fantastic blogs from all kinds of people in the community about either its specific use cases or niche things they've been doing. But really, if you have a project that you've been using Dapper, it's bringing you value, especially if it is something official that's going in production for an organization or a company. That is always great testimonial. We are actually going to have a few customer stories that we're working on publishing that are going to be part of that announcement, and hopefully will be even published maybe a little bit before that. So sharing that also helps us kind of convey the message, which is the big thing for this version 1.0 release, which is that Dapper is production ready. So up till now, with the 0.x versions, it's been preview. So we didn't really recommend people to necessarily use it in production. But now we feel it is in a place where it's stable. It's other organizations have been using it in production, and that's a big moment. So just helping us kind of bring that message forward would be great. You can see here, there's like a couple of calls to action. So if there's like one thing we might ask people to do, if they want to check out Dapper, is go to the getting started in the docs. Right now, there's a tutorial there that really does a step-by-step of installing the CLI, initializing, trying a little bit of the API, setting up a component, and then going over to the quick starts. So we believe that's a really great way to get started with Dapper. And also, if you've been following us on the Twitter or on the YouTube channel, you've probably seen that we have like a new animated video that kind of explained Dapper as like the elevator pitch, just 2.5 minutes. And that's a great way also to kind of help and explain what Dapper is. So yeah, this is really exciting. And we would love for everybody to help. And I'm just looking over the chat. There seems to be some excitement, which is great already. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. So I see, yeah, so Carlos, can we talk about the data already, or do we wait? I think right now, this is an open source project, so we are kind of sharing this, and like even this call will go on YouTube. But I think in terms of being most impactful, I think if you're planning to maybe do a little blog or talk about it, I think it would be best to kind of put all that effort on the day of. So it's coming out. I think we've been very kind of open and transparent about the fact that this is coming soon with the release candidates and everything. But I think if you're going to do something, I would kind of try to do it on February 17th. So that would be best. In terms of Xavier is asking about the customer use cases. So we're going to have a couple ones that are actually going to be, there are also Microsoft customers. So they're going to be published on the Microsoft official customer story, which is great because that's like an official Microsoft one. And those are actually going to be coming, I believe, in the next couple of weeks. And obviously we'll link to them from the announcement and all that. But we might have a few more that we might do on our own blog. If you, by the way, have something to share and are willing to write something, please reach out to me. I will be gladly work with you to get that on our blog, and we can use that as well. And I know we already talked to a few folks here to use Xavier to maybe include some more logos of projects and organizations that are using Dapper officially, and we'll be doing an update to the website and kind of adding those to the announcement. So that's terrific. If there's more people who are willing and able to do that, please reach out to me or to Mark Fussell, and we'll get on that. So yes, I don't know if anybody from the maintainers wants to add to that. Feel free to jump in. But otherwise, I'm not sure I'm seeing any more questions. And we can move to the last part of this call, which is just an open discussion on anything, any questions, any comments, any proposals on Dapper features, on the recent release candidates. We always would love to get feedback on people trying those out, especially when we're kind of finalizing the last release candidate. Feel free to drop comments, questions in the chat, and I'm also happy to unmute folks who want to just speak.
One thing I'd say already that would be interesting to hear from the community is as we get to V1, which is now in a few weeks away, and it's pretty exciting, it'd be kind of really interesting about where you think priorities of other features are past that, and what you think you'd like to sort of vote up and vote down in terms of feature areas. So, for example, like query capability in state management is something that's been talked about quite a lot. So, you know, in a community call after V1, we'd love to kind of start to think about that sort of thing if you've got some ideas and where things could go. So, you know, start putting some ideas into that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mark. Thank you for raising that. We absolutely want to kind of have a good roadmap moving forward. And obviously, this is a community-driven project, and we want the community to weigh in, especially now that people are using it in projects across different scenarios. What are the gaps? What are the things you'd like to see? And we can prioritize it. The maintainers can kind of prioritize it in the relevant places, SDKs, the runtime, CLI, all that. Mr. Jenks, let me get you to unmute, and maybe you can speak to your question or scenario, because there's
hello. First, I'd like to say I only really use Zoom to run my Cub Scout meetings. I am a pack leader, so that is why my icon is Mr. Jenks. But
oh, that's okay. It's cool.
Thank you. I am a J.R. Jenks. I have a team that is considering Dapper, and we want to work with a central dev server running all of our microservices, of which there will be several. There will be many. And a developer won't need to have all the microservices running locally, because they will be able to use Bridge to Kubernetes to tap into the microservices and redirect certain traffic to their local dev environment from a central Kubernetes server. Does that make sense?
Yeah, go on.
And as my understanding is that that's not usually, that's the problem is that Bridge to Kubernetes only will do this if you have one service per pod, because it uses the ingress controller, uses the ingress of the pod to redirect the traffic. And if I tried to do this with the Dapper, which expects there to be a pod with a service and a sidecar, the sidecar traffic would not get intercepted. So that's the problem that I think I'm trying to solve. My thought to solve that is that I would put the sidecars out there in standalone mode, which means that they would call their services through the ingress, and therefore the traffic could be redirected.
So you're going to be running Dapr in self-host mode on the developer's machine, or
The Dapper on the server. Ignore the developer for now.
okay?
On the server, I will have many services running with sidecars, but instead of putting the sidecars in a pod with each service, the sidecars will be running in their own pods and will be connecting to the service by calling through the service's usual HTTP stuff, which goes through the ingress. So I would
Okay,
deploy one service in a pod and one sidecar in a pod.
So, okay, when you run Dapr in Kubernetes mode, it will put one sidecar in a pod.
I'm not running it in the Kubernetes mode. It will be on Kubernetes, but it is running in standalone mode.
Okay, and will it still run in the model of one sidecar per pod?
Yes. No, one sidecar per service, but not one sidecar per pod.
So when you say per service, how many, like, what's the ratio between Kubernetes services and pods? If you have
1 to 1.
pod.
1 to 1.
Okay. So, when you install Dapr in Kubernetes mode, it actually creates a Kubernetes service for you. Could you maybe somehow use that?
The problem is if I used the, what you're saying when I create it in standalone mode, it makes a Kubernetes service.
When you run it in Kubernetes mode, it creates a service.
Okay. The problem is that the traffic between the service and the sidecar does not go through an ingress controller. It's direct, correct?
Yeah, but in a regular Kubernetes deployment, it will also not be going through an ingress. I mean, you put an ingress to point to a service.
Exactly.
So
I want there to be an ingress between the sidecar and the service because that ingress is important for bridge to Kubernetes to work.
okay, so the Kubernetes service points to an ingress?
Yes, the Dapper sidecar will point to the ingress in another pod.
So when you say that, when you say the Dapper sidecar will point to an ingress, do you mean to ask if you can configure the sidecar to talk to an application that's not in its pod?
Yes.
Okay, actually, we do have an undocumented experimental feature that does this. Funny you ask. Yeah, it's coming out in RC3, where you will have an environment variable that allows Dapper to get the IP or DNS name of where the app sits, so you can have exactly what you want. But
so I can do this with RC3.
Yeah, you can do this with RC3. I will just go ahead and say that, if it's for dev purposes, maybe that's fine.
Yes.
But just know that communication will not be encrypted, right? I mean, you can protect it with token authentication, but you will not have an end-to-end encryption.
Perfect. This is only for development purposes, so that would be fine.
Okay, great. So, join our Discord server and ping me personally, and I'll provide you info on how to do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I see Tron dropped in the chat a few thoughts about the post version 1.0 release. Let me actually, we can speak to that, Tron, but your point about documentation is absolutely true. We're glad that you see the documentation improving. I know you've been a part of that as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
And we absolutely want to see that. And I think that's also, by the way, a call to action towards the release. People, if you can go over the docs, anything you see, broken links, better clarifications of things, please open PRs, open issues, and we'll try to get the docs better. But yeah, please speak to the rest of your thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, and we're probably not the only ones who have been kind of, can say, growing together with Dapper now for a couple of months. And it's, I mean, the rate of change is just staggering. So almost daily in the Discord, there's like, oh, we're having problem with this. Oh, it's solved in Edge. Just try the Edge version and blah. So there's a lot of change, but I guess now with V1, it feels to me like the important thing is to kind of stabilize it and make sure that we, or if we choose between adding new features and really documenting and kind of robustifying what's already there, I would maybe tend to kind of do the latter, to just
Yes.
make sure that everything is kind of rock solid and that logging is good and that documentation is made such that it's super easy for new users to kind of figure out what to do, and then to kind of have that non-feature focus maybe for a little while now, just to kind of make everything as nice an experience as possible. That more than kind of adding new features.
Thank you for saying that. I am deeply with you, and we're pushing hard to do that and improve the documentation.
It's the eternal feature versus non-feature struggle, huh?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Just like, I mean, for example, the features we showed you today, you would love, I mean, we showed you the documentation to go with them. And we want to make sure that we continue to have documentation with the features. In fact, I think we should only be demoing, we should demo features and documentation at the same time. And that way, and we still have a backlog of work where people check in code, and we've got to cover some of the docs for it all. So yes, please, everyone can, the docs make it better. So thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think also about the rate of change, that's a good point too. I think there's kind of like when a project is in preview and still not 1.0, there is kind of an expectation that things might break and that things are changing quickly. And I think it's a good point. And we do expect, just from conversations with the other maintainers and so on, that there is going to be a bit of a slowing down because, you know, once something is production ready and people are using it in production, there is that to consider as well. And obviously there's going to be a lot of backwards compatibility things, and things will be, if they do kind of need to be updated, that will be a slow move, and I feel like we'll see more stabilization coming forward. But thank you again for saying that, and I think that is a consideration we're definitely thinking about.
Yeah, and I want to chime in on something here. You know, so we've been trying to run Dapr as natively as possible in Kubernetes to really make it a really good experience for people who are working with Kubernetes tools, the Kubernetes ecosystem, and you know, Helm specifically. And Trond, I saw your PR, I left you a comment there, by the way. Looks like a really great PR. And you know, one of the downsides of that is that Dapr is supposed to make it simple for developers to write applications, and it's doing that in a great way. But when we're running so natively on Kubernetes, you know, we're inheriting all of the complexity that comes with running applications on Kubernetes. So I think after 1.0, we'll really want to invest, you know, more in our developer tooling, making it just more easy to run Dapr in Kubernetes environments, and maybe remedy some of the operational things that people run into when running not just Dapr, but really any kind of application on Kubernetes. And so really make the project appeal even more to ops people, and not just focus on the developer persona, which the project has been focusing on mostly up until now.
Yeah, thanks for commenting, when I just answered that now. Yeah, it would be so good to get that PR in. That would make upgrading Dapper a lot safer for people running Helm. So it'd be an awesome thing to get in. But we can discuss that in the issue.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Awesome.
And Xavier, I know you have some thoughts as well. Feel free to unmute, should be able to.
Yeah, can you hear me? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, no, I second Tron's comment there. So I see often when working just with new components and stuff, when going through the documentation, that some wording could be a little bit clearer. So I try to as well do some pull requests there when I think something should be changed. I think it's very important to have that documentation indeed crystal clear, so that if you're new to a component, like sometimes I am, it's sometimes a struggle to get to use that component just because some naming conventions of the component itself are a puzzle to figure out. Like, for example, I saw myself recently going through service bus, and there as well, because it's of course a service bus native terminology there. I saw myself struggling to get it working. Then of course as well to find out that there is a bug upstream after running that in production for a while, but that's of course a different topic there. The same with the AWS, for example. I was utilizing an AWS component a while back, I think it's a couple of months ago, and that just didn't work. So I think it's indeed very important that if a component is there, the documentation as well should be a bit clearer sometimes. But again, as soon as I see some room for improvement, I will definitely help on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, we've been trying to improve. I, for example, went through the other day and tried to, based on a recommendation, to try to improve the table layout of all of the metadata fields for the pub sub components. But we haven't sort of done all of that yet. But if you, I mean, as with all these things, if you come across something and push a little PR into the docs, we'll always pick it up and work with it. So it's much better if you push a PR with the changes that you see, and we'll review that. And then we'll just jump on it as you come across these things. And if you want to help out this improving some of the documentation on the components, we're trying to put all the metadata into some nice table format with examples and the defaults and things at the moment. And we haven't really covered all the documentation at the moment. So feel free to kind of push anything that you feel that you can contribute towards that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I will definitely indeed help with all the documentation as soon as I come across it. So no worries on that.
Yeah, and thank you for. I think I did see the one you did with the service bus that fixed that missing endpoint thing. I think it was you, right, Xavier?
Yeah. So, but that's now up to, like, I opened a support case for that on Azure to make sure that the Go team of service bus fixes that. It's an SDK issue. Because that's sometimes the issue, right? Like, is it a Dapr issue or is it the Go SDK or another SDK issue? So that's sometimes a bit of puzzling to figure that out.
Yeah. I think you're right though. More like to Mark's point, more examples sometimes like just do wonders. If you just add another, like, I think we should do a better job in the components to do some of that. I think. Yeah, we have some components I think are very minimally. We kind of bring the YAML structure in general in the fields, but sometimes an example does wonders. Yeah, so I agree with that. And actually, we've been getting a lot of feedback, for example, for the structure of the docs, and we are kind of deliberating how to do that. And even what we just discussed, the places where we define all the components, right now it's kind of sitting under operations, and it's a bit disjoint from the building block descriptions that are under developing applications. And with that, we also have a reference section that basically is the reference, includes the reference to the CLI and to the API. So we're like, one of the things we're considering, for example, is moving some of those, removing the component descriptions to the reference section as well. So things like that. So we are taking that feedback, and things that are recurring, we're trying to address them as well. So I'm glad I saw Tron saying that he feels there is an improvement in the docs, which I am very happy as a docs maintainer. But there's definitely room to do more. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. I as well see a lot of improvements, by the way. So I really love how it's all evolving. So we're getting there. Thank you for that.
Great. So with that, I think we can close this one. Just another reminder of the February 17th. Very exciting moment. Help us blog about it, tweet about it when the moment comes. And thank you everybody for the contribution, for the discussion, and for just getting Dapper to this point. So thank you so much.